Hello and welcome to this section of the Chemistry Tutor. In this section we're going to cover the topic of limiting reactants in a chemical reaction. It has a complicated sounding name because, reactants, what does that mean? Limiting, what does that mean? But I promise you, everything that we're going to do in this section, you actually already know how to do. I just need to kind of coax you into realizing that a little bit. And that's what you're going to find out, to be honest with you, almost all the way through the rest of Chemistry 1, is basically I've given you the tools already to understand how to do all the calculations. You know how to do the unit conversion technique I've been showing you over and over again. You know how to calculate molar mass, off the periodic table. You know how to basically deal with chemical reactions. The rest of all the topics, to be honest with you, are mostly applications of sort of special cases and things to think about, but we're not going to be learning new calculations or new formulas or anything like that. We're mainly going to be using what we know and applying it to certain cases. So from here on out, keep that in mind. It looks like we've got a lot of different topics coming down the road, but in reality, there's really not too many different topics. We're just kind of breaking up everything into special cases. This is a great example of that. Let me go ahead and explain what limiting reactants is for you in just a few sentences, and I think you'll realize that it's something you already knew but didn't maybe realize it. So it's a great example of what I'm talking about. In all the chemical reactions that we've been talking about, and I'll draw one on the board here in a minute, you have things combining on the left-hand side of the arrow, and they're combining to make the products on the right-hand side. The products are the things created on the right-hand side of the arrow, right? That makes sense. The reactants, that's everything on the other side of the arrow, of the equation. So the reactants are everything that you put into the reaction chamber. So when we say limiting reactants, we're talking about the things that are on the left-hand side of the arrow, the things we're mixing together to make our chemical reaction happen. Now the limiting part I need to explain to you, but that's sort of where we're going. Let me write one very simple chemical reaction on the board, and I'll be able to tell you quickly what a limiting reactant is. So remember the reaction, H2, 2H2 actually, plus O2 yields 2H2O. I picked this because it's very simple and it's something, that we obviously need because it produces water. So if you look, this is balanced. Four hydrogens, 2 oxygens, 2 oxygens. So this is balanced, right? What it basically says is if we take hydrogen gas and mix it with oxygen gas, which by the way we do in rocket engines, and if you react it, then it produces water. And also it produces a lot of heat because it produces an explosion. That's what's sort of left out of this reaction. We haven't talked about heat at all. We'll get to that later in chemistry class. But there's basically heat produced, but there's also a lot of water produced.